I am delighted to have Lieutenant General Ben Hodges with me. He is a retired U.S. Lieutenant General and also the former commander of the U.S. Army in Europe. Currently, he is the Pershing Chair in Strategic Studies at the Center for European Policy Analysis. Lieutenant General Hodges, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for the privilege.
So I have many questions to ask you. You know, you have, in a very transparent and public way, criticized some of Donald Trump's rhetoric, especially in regard to some of our well-known institutions, including NATO. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But I think since this is an international conference, we'll talk about some of the international issues that have been discussed, particularly the issue of nationalism. We're seeing a rising level of nationalism in many countries. And as someone who was part of the U.S. military, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, of course, I've been in the Army, was in the Army for 37 years, and from day one, NATO was what always bound us together. And so I've grew up believing in multinational organizations, multilateral attempts at solving security problems. And so all my training, all my experience was that. And I think there's room for both, for national pride, the identity of the different nations. But at the end of the day, our security, our collective well-being really depends on countries working together. No country, including the United States, has all the capacity, all the capabilities it needs. I mean, we can't buy everything that we purchase, and we don't make everything that we need. So I think it's just practical that we've got to work together.
Yeah, and we have seen quite a bit of unilateralism coming from Donald Trump's administration, especially when it comes to declaring national security threats in order to engage in these trade wars. That's an example. But one of the things that I'm really curious about is, you know, how do we as Americans deal with the fact that, you know, there's a lot of jingoistic rhetoric in our country. I mean, national pride has always been a big part of who we are. This idea of always supporting any and all military efforts abroad. So there's that component of it, and then we have a president who is saying that we should support our troops, but then completely going against what his generals, as he refers to them, tell him, does not listen to intelligence briefings, does not listen to their advice, and has decided on his own that he wants to pull troops out of Syria and also Afghanistan. Do you think that Donald Trump made those decisions based on his own morals or based on his own analysis of the situation? Do you think that there might be other influences at play? What do you think about his decision to pull troops out?
Well, what I think is that it's important for other countries to respect the United States and also to be confident in us. And I think it has undermined some confidence in us from some of our allies with a short-term decision or a decision to pull out of Syria, for example, even though you know, the military commanders have said that ISIS is not yet defeated. This is not something that just because you may take all the territory from them that they go away. Having said that, I think the Congress has done a terrific job stepping up, assuming more responsibility for foreign affairs, for example. And I also think, though, that, I mean, I don't get upset or lose any sleep over tweets anymore. And I think that our institutions are strong enough that the leadership in the Pentagon and in the State Department, as well as in the Congress, we're able to do what needs to be done the correct way. I don't want to call it a buffer or a break, but I think most of the world leaders also have begun to realize and understand the president's style, which appeals to a large part of our population. I don't like it. I think it's unhelpful. But at the end of the day, despite what he said about NATO, for example, during his administration, our commitment in Europe has actually increased. So I think most of our allies have kind of come to the realization, and maybe more importantly, our potential adversaries, Russia and China, realize that he's very serious, and that is a changing
Do you think
dynamic.
Russia sees Trump as someone who's serious?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes, I
Okay,
sure do.
so there are a few things I want to push back on. So before I get lost in a Russia conversation, let me just mention Congress. So you believe that Congress has done a good job in mitigating some of Donald Trump's erratic behavior. Can you give me specific examples? Because I feel as though Congress, in particular Republicans in Congress, have gone along with pretty much everything that Trump has wanted to do.
That's not true at all.
Okay.
Senator Rubio has come forward to kind of help take the lead, a very mature, wise lead with regards to Venezuela, for example. The congressional delegation that's here in Munich for the Munich Security Conference is the biggest ever, and it's a very bipartisan delegation. You've got Republican members, Democratic members, Speaker of the House Pelosi, Ms. Pelosi is here, and the message from all of these members has been very, very strong, consistent. NATO is essential for the United States security. Our allies can trust the United States. And then, of course, the Congress, they vote with their feet and they vote with their money. So when members choose to spend time doing something like this, participate in a conference like this, that's a very powerful symbol. And the money that the Congress has continued to authorize and appropriate above and beyond the normal defense spending has increased 3 years in a row to enable an increase in American presence in Europe, Poland, Baltic countries, Black Sea region. So this is as strong as they can be. I've been actually very impressed with it. And then, of course, legislation. Right before the NATO summit in Brussels, the Senate voted 98-1 to affirm America's commitment to Article 5 of the Washington Treaty, which created NATO. This is an armed attack on one, is an armed attack on all, to remove all doubt. And the Congress has also started working on legislation to make sure that no president could unilaterally pull the United States out of NATO.
They've begun that legislation. I'm curious to see where it goes.
I'm confident that it will get done.
But you know, funding for the military is different because Trump is very much in favor of additional funding for the military. I mean, I don't think that there's ever been a U.S. president, with the exception of Obama temporarily, to pull a little bit of funding away from the military.
No, that's not true at all. I mean, I'm an old person, so I have a little bit more experience, and I can remember in the 70s and early 80s, the military was still trying to get out of the whole post-Vietnam era. And so we have gone through periods. The point is, we do have the best resourced military in the world, but we're also the only military in the world that has global responsibilities. And with all that the military is asked to do on behalf of the government, the Navy is not big enough to do everything it needs to do. And of course, modernization efforts, this takes a lot of money.
We unfortunately only have 2 minutes left, so I do want to touch on Russia. You claim that Russia does see Donald Trump as a serious president, someone that would hold their feet to the fire. Is that what you mean when you say that?
Well, what I mean is, look at the facts on the ground. As I like to tell people, don't read what we tweet, watch what we do. And again, the amount of troops and capabilities that have been deployed into Europe, as well as in other places around the world, demonstrate a real commitment. The sanctions that are in place.
He was very, very reluctant to actually implement those sanctions. There was a lot of pressure, and he finally did it.
But they are done.
Don't you think there are too many coincidences when it comes to Donald Trump and Russia? And look, I'm not some Russia fearmonger, but he questions the legitimacy of NATO. He questions whether or not it was really that big of a deal for Russia to annex Crimea. He was very reluctant to implement those sanctions. He is very complimentary to Vladimir Putin. I mean, it's just his actions really do speak volumes. And I don't know if that really signals to Vladimir Putin that Donald Trump is serious about holding his feet to the fire.
I think that the president of the Russian Federation is probably as confused as many other people, and it's not helpful when the president questions Article 5 or is not crystal clear about America's commitment. But the fact is, the facts on the ground tell a different story. The alliance is sticking together. And I think that the president of the Russian Federation is very confused, is very concerned, and I think that whatever hopes they might have had in the beginning, I think those are gone, and they see an alliance that has great resolve to continue to deter. Am I completely happy with all of it? Absolutely not. And I wish the president, it's unfortunate we have to spend so much time assuring everybody, no, we're committed, we're committed. That lays at the feet of the president. He should remove all doubt. Having the vice president say it doesn't quite get there all the way. So this is why American leadership, positive leadership by the President of the United States is so important, bringing our alliance together and also supporting organizations like the EU, which is another important institution. At the end of the day, the Russians are doing everything they can to undermine our institutions. They cause us to lose trust in our electoral process, cause us to lose trust in our judicial process, cause us to lose trust in the media. All of these things, these are institutions that have withstood multiple leadership changes from both sides, and that's what all of us have got to make sure we do, that we have a resilient society that can withstand those attempts to undermine all the stuff that we really care about.
Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, thank you so much. I could have an hour-long conversation with you about all of this. I do appreciate you taking the time.
I don't know if I could take an hour of this, Anna.
Well, I hope it was a little enjoyable for you. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for watching. Please leave a comment in the comment section below. Use the hashtag YourMSC to share your thoughts, your concerns, your questions. We love hearing from you, and we'll see you soon.